Okay, guys, me and the professor here. Happy 4th of July. Good afternoon, my fellow Americans, or for anyone who celebrates. I just want to drop the top 5 current melee countries. Now, this is top 5 overall based on top players' performances. So now I know a lot of people might not agree with this one at all, but I have looked at the data overall. I don't agree with this list here either. I'm going to make my own top 5. First, I do think America, good old USA, I think, is the best melee country in the world. There have been, I totaled up the majors too. There's been roughly 200 majors all time, majors and super majors. With prize pools big enough people to be considered majors and super majors, you could scroll this list. The USA has won about 160 of the 200. So that is very impressive. The two current melee gods, I think the two current melee gods are Zayn and Cody. They're both American. Out of the original 5 melee gods, I think we'd have to scroll down. Hungry Box, Mewtwo King, Mango, PPMD. PPMD is American, I believe, too. Of course, Armada's Swedish, but, yeah, right. PPMD's American, too. 4 out of 5 original melee gods were American. Even before them, like Ken was American. And of course, the 2 current melee gods, Zayn, I already said that, Zayn and, Cody. Even Jmook, Jmook's been very good lately. They're all American. And, so I think USA is the best country ever at melee by far. I don't think it's even close. I don't think anyone's really going to disagree with that. Even Swedish fans of, Armada and Leffen. I don't think anyone's going to disagree with that, but I do think the United States is the best country for melee by far. Who else was from? Pipsqueak, of course. Sweden does have a couple other good guys. Aside from Armada and Leffen, I have heard of some of these guys, but yeah, it's not even close. I think USA is the best country in the world. Not to be biased, because I'm obviously American. Right, but I do think America's the best country. Let's move on, because I don't want this video to go long. The second best country overall, all-time, as of 2024, I do believe is Sweden, as you can see by my Swedish flag here on the Word document. Primarily because, sorry, let's ignore these advertisements. Primarily because, one of the original melee gods, Armada, was Swedish, and also Leffen is Swedish. Leffen, was nicknamed once the God Slayer. Leffen, historically, is one of the best melee players of all time. See, look at this 2015. Oh my God, Leffen and Armada combined had a lot here. That's how they got Sweden. It does combine for about 35, roughly 35 out of the 200 majors and super majors. Far more than any other country but USA. Armada, yeah, really had a lot here. Peach, he even played a little bit of Young Link. And we all know I'm not a fan of Young Link, but right, so just looking historically at melee, although Armada, we still see him announcing sometimes too, he has retired, but Leffen still does play, so the Swedish players are still relevant, and even if they weren't relevant, just their performances, historically, I do have to leave Sweden second. Also, Pipsqueak, there are a couple other Swedish players who are not as good, but still, top-tier caliber. Right, let's move on. Third, now, so I think most people would actually agree with my first place USA placement, second place all-time Sweden. Third place, I did put Japan. Now, I think people are not going to agree with my 4 and 5 spots at all. But I think 3, some people might not agree with this, but I have to say, out of the 200 majors all time, Japan has won 4 of them. Even before AMSA, there was this really old-school guy player who I actually remember. Captain Jack was very good. He was like a Sheik-type player. He did win 1 major. There are a lot of other good Japanese players who don't go to these type of majors. They play, within Japan only. You could even look them up here on this list here. But the reason I do believe Japan is in the 3 spot. Oh, wow, they do have Captain Jack. I do remember him. But AMSA is just, the main reason I have Japan 3 is single-handedly because of AMSA. In 2022, AMSA did win 3 majors. He has finished second a couple times, too, which is important, And it's harder for these international guys to be finish second and third. It's just much more rare than you think. It's usually Americans in the top 3. But right, AMSA 22 had 3 majors. He took second once. He took second once in 2023. Of course, in 2024, we all know he's taken 2 second for all the people who follow currently. I have been trashing AMSA. I've ironically picked him to win almost every major in 2024, which has been my Achilles heel, has crushed my picks. But he has won 2. He has taken second twice. He started off much better. Genesis X, he looked much better than he did in Tipped Off 15. But, right, I am going to put Japan as the 3rd best country overall for melee, mostly because of AMSA, because I do think he's raised this country up just single-handedly with Yoshi. And of course, he has taken 4 majors. No other country has even taken more than 1 major, which is kind of sad. We said like 160 for USA, 35 for Sweden, which is impressive, and 4 for Japan. No other country has won more than 1 major. Okay, let's move on here. I don't want this video to go on too long. The 4th best country, so now I know most people probably are going to agree with my top 3 so far. I don't think anyone's going to agree with my 4 and 5. But I have looked at the data, and I'm going to say Canada's the 4th best country for Melee overall. So now you might be thinking, well, you moron, go to your usual list. You don't see any no Canadians, believe it or not, in any of these majors or super majors have even finished 1st or 2nd. But I do think Canada has a better spread than any other country. Even did we see a guy from the Netherlands? I think won a major years ago. I'll have to look into that. Right, this guy won a major right here. AMSA instead of AMSA. I don't know how to say that in whatever language. Right, but that was, remember, that tournament was in France, so I don't think the Americans went. The high-end American players went. So I'm gonna have to X that off. I'm not gonna have that country, Netherlands, in my top 5. I am gonna put Canada. So a lot of you might disagree with this. I am gonna put Canada in the 4th spot as the 4th best country ever. Primarily because of Moki and Sunsei. These guys are good too. Kirby, Cage, Ryan, Ford are not as active, or they haven't been as good as Moki and Sunsei. So I know what you're thinking. You might be saying, okay, so your argument is that Canada has a better spread overall, more top players. But if we go back to this list, a Canadian has never finished 1st or 2nd. But I know it's not right to look into the future, but I do think a Canadian will finish 1st or 2nd soon, maybe even end of this year. Also, there's a lot of majors in Canada. Canada may even have more friendly visa policies than USA. It might be harder. It might be easier for people to get to the Canadian tournaments, especially if they're coming from overseas. Right. So I do think Moki, Moki, Ryan, Ford still active. Sunsei still very active too. I do think one of the Canadians will win a major soon, and I do think they have better placements overall than any other country recently. Even I don't know who else you would argue. What other country? Mexico, or what other country you would argue that I have not already placed? Mexico, maybe Eddie Mexico, or let's go back to this other list here. Let's see what this list says. I don't agree with this list. Spain, of course, Trish. Spain has some good players. Let's see, I'm drawing a blank here. Triff, right, I've heard of these guys too. But again, other than Triff, they're not top tier. I do think the Canadians have had better placements overall. I do think the Canadians have had better placement overall than the Spain Spanish. Okay, so I have heard of these guys too, and even Eddie's more high-end on ages ago. These guys might be more modern players, but again, they don't participate in American tournaments and don't finish that high, so I can't do that. Germany, maybe. I know there's a good Ices player from Germany, but I can't ice, right? Nikki, right? I've heard of. But again, I have to go back to my Word document. I do have to put Canada in the 4th spot, even though they have not won or finished 2nd in a major or super major yet. I do believe they're the 4th best country. Let's wrap this up. My 5th spot is going to surprise a lot of people. I know a lot of people aren't going to agree with this. They would say you're an idiot. It's Germany or England or Spain or Mexico or even France. But I do think Nicaragua is, I can't say that. Nicaragua is the 5th best country all time in Melee, purely because of one player. Believe it or not, I do think one player single-handedly moved Nicaragua into the 5th spot, and his name is Nunn. Now, we've all heard of Nunn, but just in terms of results, I do think Nunn on his own has had better results than all of Mexico ever, or all of England ever, or all of Germany ever. And I know you might not agree with that, but in 2020, he did win Get On My Line major. Okay, maybe doesn't have the biggest money win, but that is significant. He did win on his own. He did finish 2nd. He did finish 2nd in a Slippy Championship here, and he is I think single-handedly good enough. He does play Captain Falcon. Of course, he does secondary Ganondorf. It says here he's secondary is Mario. I don't think I remember seeing that, but I do have to look into that, his Mario. But, if we look at his spread, this is Project M. We have to go to Melee, obviously. Right. If we do look at his spread overall, his rankings, he's been 37th, 18th, 9th, 15th, 29th. So nothing crazy here, not top level. But I do think, especially because he won that major and finished 2nd in that major, Of course, in Canadian tournaments, he fares much better, of course, because there's not as many good players. All-time top, if we could go to the all-time top 100 page. I haven't clicked into this in a while. This is going to be interesting. I'm not going to agree with this at all. I could just tell before I even view it. But in terms of countries, I don't want this video to go on too long. I do have to stick with my placements. I do have to say USA 1, Sweden 2, Japan 3. I think most people would agree with that. I am going to put Canada 4 just because of their spread recently. I do think the Canadians have had a better spread, and I know no one's going to agree with this, but I am going to put Nicaragua 5. I am going to put them in the 5 spot. Okay, this has a bad gateway. I'll show this in a different tournament. So again, I don't agree with this list. This list has, United States, Sweden. I think Japan has clearly overall been better than Canada just because of AMSA. So I would move Canada to the 4 spot, and then I would put Nicaragua above Germany and United Kingdom, purely because of none. Okay, hope everyone leave a comment if you agree, disagree with my top 5 overall. Hope everyone has a good 4th of July. See you guys.